Why do some people build wealth effortlessly, while others stay stuck no matter how hard they work? The truth isn't luck, and it's not even talent. It all comes down to how you think, decide, and behave with money, something most people never fully understand. In The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, we uncovered 20 powerful lessons about wealth, greed, happiness, and life itself. In this full audiobook breakdown, I'll take you chapter by chapter, simplifying every lesson so you can start applying it right away. By the end, you won't just understand money better, you'll see it in a completely new way. Chapter 1. No one's crazy. When it comes to money, people make choices that often look strange or even foolish from the outside. But here's what Morgan Housel wants us to understand. No one's crazy when it comes to money. Why? Because how you handle money isn't about pure logic. It's shaped by your personal experiences, what you've lived through, what you've seen, and even what you've feared. For someone who grew up during the Great Depression, money feels like safety. They may save obsessively and avoid risk at all costs. But someone who only saw booming markets and easy wealth might jump into risky investments without a second thought. Same world, same financial principles, completely different behavior. Housel gives this powerful example. Imagine two people in the same room. One of them sees a rising stock market and thinks, "This is a chance to get rich." The other sees the same market and thinks, "This could all come crashing down tomorrow." Neither person is crazy. They're both reacting based on what life has taught them about money. The key lesson here is that financial decisions aren't made in spreadsheets. They're made in real life, with emotions, with memories, with fear and hope mixed together. That's why two people can read the same financial advice and walk away making opposite choices. Morgan Housel wants us to drop the judgment. Instead of looking at someone else's money decisions and saying, "That's dumb," ask yourself, what experiences shaped the way they see risk? What fears or lessons from the past drive their choices today? How might my own experiences be blinding me to other perspectives? To sum it up, everyone is wired by their own unique financial history. No one's crazy. We're all just responding to the lessons life has taught us about money. Understanding this makes you less judgmental, more open-minded, and better equipped to make smarter financial choices for yourself. Chapter 2. Luck and Risk. In this chapter, Morgan Housel dives into two forces that silently shape our financial lives: luck and risk. He begins with a powerful story about Bill Gates. Gates went to one of the only high schools in America at the time that had a computer. Because of that rare opportunity, he developed a skill set that put him decades ahead of most people his age. Yes, Gates is brilliant and hard-working, but Housel reminds us, if Gates had been born in a different place or gone to a different school, the story might have ended differently. That's luck. But luck's twin sibling is risk. Take the story of Kent Evans, one of Gates's closest friends. Kent was just as smart, driven, and full of potential as Bill Gates and Paul Allen, the co-founders of Microsoft. Yet Kent died in a mountain climbing accident as a teenager. Same opportunity, same talent, different outcome, because of risk. Here is the point Morgan Housel drives home. Luck means you can do everything right and still get results far better than your skill alone can explain. Risk means you can do everything right and still lose everything because of circumstances you couldn't control. Both luck and risk remind us to stay humble when things go well and to stay compassionate when things go badly for others. Too often, people look at a billionaire and say, they're successful because they worked harder than everyone else. Hard work matters, but so does being born in the right place, meeting the right people, or avoiding the wrong kind of accident. And on the flip side, We shouldn't look at someone who lost everything and assume they were reckless or lazy. Sometimes life just delivers bad luck. The lesson here is balance. Take responsibility for your actions because your choices matter. But stay humble about your success because luck often plays a bigger role than we like to admit. And never judge someone's failure too harshly. Risk might have played a bigger role than you can see. To sum it up, success is never 100% hard work, and failure is never 100% mistakes. Luck and risk are always part of the story. Understanding this keeps you grounded when you win, patient when you lose, and compassionate toward others on their financial journey. Chapter 3. Never enough. Most people think wealth is about always reaching for more. More money, more success, more status. But Morgan Housel shows us in this chapter that never enough can be dangerous. Because if you never define what's enough, you can lose everything chasing what you don't need. He begins with the story of Joseph Heller, the author of Catch-22. At a party hosted by a billionaire, someone told Heller that the host had made more money in a single day than he had earned in his entire career. Heller simply replied, "Yeah, but I have something he will never have. Enough." That single word, enough, holds the key to happiness, security, and peace of mind. Some people have plenty of money, but because they keep comparing themselves to others, it never feels like enough. Comparison has no finish line. There will always be someone with more wealth, a bigger house, a better car. And if your happiness depends on being ahead of everyone else, you'll never find peace. Chasing more can push people into dangerous territory. They start taking risks they don't need to take, risks that can cost them everything. Think of people like Bernie Madoff, who already had wealth, influence, and success, but ran one of the largest Ponzi schemes in history. He ended up losing it all, including his freedom, because what he had wasn't enough. Morgan Housel drives home a simple truth. There is no reason to risk what you have and need for what you don't have and don't need. The real solution is learning to define your own enough. Enough doesn't mean you stop growing or give up on ambition. It means knowing how much wealth you truly need for the life you want, and refusing to risk it for the sake of ego or endless comparison. Because real wealth isn't just money. It's freedom, security, peace of mind, health, and strong relationships. Chasing more at the cost of these things isn't success. It's self-sabotage. To sum it up, happiness and security come from knowing when what you have is enough. If you never define that point, you'll always feel like you're losing, even when you're winning. Chapter 4. Confounding Compounding. In this chapter, Morgan Housel explores one of the most powerful yet underestimated forces in finance, and in life, compounding. Most people think wealth grows in straight lines. You invest a little, it grows a little. You work hard, you earn more. But the reality is that compounding doesn't work in straight lines. It works like a snowball rolling down a hill, getting bigger and bigger as time goes on. Housel uses Warren Buffett as the ultimate example. Buffett is one of the richest people on the planet, but here's the part many people overlook. Almost all of Buffett's wealth came after his 50th birthday. Why? Because he started investing early, stuck with it for decades, and let compounding work its magic. Buffett didn't just get wealthy because he's a brilliant investor. He got wealthy because he's been a brilliant investor for more than 75 years. Here's the thing. Compounding is hard for people to wrap their heads around because its results are invisible at first. Think about it. In the early years, growth looks small. So small it's easy to ignore or give up on. but after enough time, the growth curve suddenly explodes upward. This is why so many people fail to take full advantage of compounding. They expect quick results. They get impatient. They stop investing or saving because it's not working fast enough. But wealth, the kind that lasts, is built slowly, then suddenly. Housel says compounding doesn't just apply to money. It applies to knowledge, relationships, fitness, almost everything in life. The more time you give something to grow, the bigger the payoff becomes later. Reading a few pages every day may not seem like much, until you've read hundreds of books over a decade. Investing a small amount every month feels slow. Until one day, you wake up with financial freedom. Small acts of kindness don't feel like much, until they come back to you multiplied in friendships and trust. The lesson is clear. Start early. Stay consistent. Give your investments and your efforts time to snowball. Because the secret to compounding isn't just the rate of return, it's the time you stay invested. To sum it up, compounding rewards patience like nothing else. Small actions, done consistently over long periods, can lead to extraordinary results. The sooner you start, and the longer you stick with it, the bigger the payoff will be. Chapter 5. Getting Wealthy versus Staying Wealthy. In this chapter, Morgan Housel makes an important distinction. Getting wealthy and staying wealthy are two very different skills. A lot of people focus on how to make money. They want to know the best investments, the right opportunities, the quickest paths to financial success. But Housel points out that building wealth and keeping it are not the same thing. Getting money often requires risk-taking, optimism, and even a bit of boldness. Staying wealthy requires almost the opposite: humility, caution, and a deep respect for uncertainty. He tells the story of Jesse Livermore, one of the most famous stock traders in history. In 1929, right before the stock market crash, Livermore made the single biggest trade of his life, betting against the market. When the crash hit, he made more money in one day than anyone had ever seen before. But here's the twist. A few years later, he lost everything. Why? Because the mindset that helped him make money, taking big risks, was the same mindset that prevented him from keeping it. Housel says staying wealthy requires three key things: a sense of enough, knowing when to stop chasing more so you don't risk it all; a survival mindset, playing defense, not just offense, protecting yourself against the unexpected; respect for luck and risk, knowing that the world is unpredictable and things can go wrong, even when you've done everything right. He uses Warren Buffett as an example again. Buffett doesn't just invest well, he avoids catastrophic mistakes. He once said, "The first rule of compounding is to never interrupt it unnecessarily." In other words, staying wealthy is about avoiding ruin. Housel calls it the paradox of risk. To get rich, you often have to take risks others won't. To stay rich, you have to take risks off the table that others keep betting on. The lesson? You don't have to be reckless to get wealthy, and you don't have to be brilliant to stay wealthy. You just have to survive. Because as long as you stay in the game, compounding can work its magic. But if you blow everything up chasing more, the game ends. To sum it up, making money is about offense. Keeping money is about defense. The real secret to long-term wealth is staying in the game long enough to let compounding and time work for you. Chapter 6. Tails, You Win. In this chapter, Morgan Housel reveals a surprising truth about success in investing and in life. You don't have to be right all the time to win big. Most people think great investors have near-perfect accuracy. They imagine someone like Warren Buffett making one smart decision after another with almost no mistakes. But Husserl shows us that reality looks very different. In investing, as in life, a small number of decisions often account for the majority of your results. This is called the tail effect, because on a graph, those rare, massive wins are the tails that extend far to the right. Husserl gives examples of companies like Amazon. Amazon made hundreds of bold bets over the years. Most failed or barely broke even, but a few worked spectacularly well. One of those was Amazon Web Services, the company's cloud computing business. It started as a small idea, but it eventually became one of Amazon's most profitable divisions, generating billions in revenue. The success of AWS was a tail event, rare, unexpected, but powerful enough to make up for all the failures combined. The same principle applies to personal wealth. You might make hundreds of small investments over your life. Most will perform okay. A few might do poorly. But one or two great investments could completely change your financial future. It's the financial version of the saying, you only need to get rich once. The takeaway is clear. You don't need to be right every time. You just need to stay in the game long enough for those rare, extraordinary successes to show up. And when they do, they can outweigh dozens of small losses. This is why survival matters so much. If you take risks that wipe you out, you'll never be around to benefit from those rare winning moments. Husserl also points out this pattern in history. Most scientific breakthroughs came from a small number of experiments. Most blockbuster movies come from a few standout films, while most others barely break even. Most wealth-building moments in investing come from a handful of big wins. The world runs on tails. To sum it up, you don't need to be perfect to succeed. You just need to stay in the game, avoid ruin, and let the rare but powerful tail events work in your favor. Because when they hit, they can change everything. Chapter 7. Freedom. In this chapter, Morgan Housel talks about something that money often promises, but doesn't always deliver. Freedom. Most people think the goal of wealth is to buy stuff, houses, cars, vacations, luxury. But Husserl argues that the greatest thing money can buy isn't material things at all. It's control over your time. He explains it like this. The ultimate form of wealth is waking up in the morning and being able to say, I can do whatever I want today. That might mean working because you want to, not because you have to. It might mean taking a break when you're tired, instead of pushing through because the bills are piling up. It might even mean choosing who you spend your time with, and who you don't. Time freedom is the highest dividend money pays. Husserl gives the example of people who seem incredibly wealthy on the outside, but are prisoners to their jobs, schedules, or lifestyles. They make millions, but have zero free time. Their days are filled with obligations they can't escape. Are they truly rich? Husserl would say no, because they lack control over the one thing you can't get back: time. He also points out that happiness research backs this up. Studies show that beyond a certain point, having more money doesn't dramatically increase happiness. But having more control over your time almost always does. The lesson here is simple but profound. Money's greatest value is giving you the ability to choose. The more of your time you control, the richer you actually are. A big salary with zero free time isn't wealth, it's a trap. To sum it up, true wealth isn't measured by how much you spend, but by how much freedom you have over your time, decisions, and life. When you control your time, you control your happiness. Chapter 8. Man in the Car Paradox. In this chapter, Morgan Housel explores one of the strangest realities about money and status. We want expensive things to impress people, but those people usually don't care about us at all. Here's how he explains it. When you see someone driving a flashy sports car, you might think, wow, that person is rich and successful. But here's the paradox. What you're actually thinking about is the car, not the person. You admire the car itself, not the driver behind the wheel. And yet, the driver often buys the car thinking, everyone will admire me. Housel calls this the man in the car paradox. We spend money to show off. People notice what we buy, but not us. The status we think we're gaining often exists only in our own heads. He points out that most people are too busy thinking about themselves to spend much time admiring others. Someone might look at your expensive watch for 2 seconds, think it's nice, then go right back to thinking about their own lives. The status you think you're projecting rarely lands the way you expect. So what's the real takeaway here? If you buy things for personal joy, that's fine. But if you buy things only for status or approval, you'll often be disappointed, because people don't think about you as much as you think they do. Housel suggests that the highest form of wealth isn't impressing strangers. It's living a life where you don't feel the need to impress anyone at all. That means valuing freedom, security, and peace of mind over the constant chase for validation. To sum it up, status symbols don't give you the admiration you expect. Real wealth comes from independence and self-respect, not from trying to prove your worth to strangers. Chapter 9. Wealth is what you don't see. In this chapter, Morgan Housel challenges one of the biggest misconceptions about wealth. When people think of wealth, they often picture visible things: big houses, luxury cars, designer clothes, expensive vacations. But Housel explains that real wealth is often invisible. Here's why. What you see, flashy spending, is money that's already gone. When someone buys a $200,000 car, what they have left is not $200,000. It's the car, and $0 of that money left in the bank. Real wealth is the money you don't spend. It's the assets, savings, and investments quietly growing behind the scenes. Housel points out that many people look rich, but aren't. They spend to appear wealthy rather than actually building wealth. On the other hand, some of the richest people don't look rich at all because they live below their means. Their wealth is hidden in bank accounts, retirement funds, stocks, and businesses, rather than parked in front of their house in the form of a fancy car. He gives the example of Ronald Reed, a janitor and gas station attendant who lived a simple life. Reed wasn't flashy. He drove a second-hand car and wore ordinary clothes. When he passed away in 2014, everyone was shocked to learn he had quietly amassed an $8 million fortune through decades of saving and investing. No one saw it because he didn't flaunt it. His wealth was invisible. The lesson here is powerful. Looking rich is easy. Spend money. Actually being rich is hard because it requires discipline, patience, and resisting the urge to show off. Housel sums it up this way. Wealth is what you don't see because it's the money you haven't spent yet. It's financial freedom, security, and options for the future, not stuff on display for the present. To sum it up, stop focusing on looking rich. Focus on being rich. Because real wealth isn't about impressing others. It's about building a life of independence, security, and freedom. Chapter 10. Save Money. In this chapter, Morgan Housel talks about one of the simplest yet most powerful financial habits: saving money. It sounds obvious. Of course, saving is important. But Housel argues that most people underestimate just how much saving shapes financial success. Here's the thing. Wealth isn't just about how much you earn. It's about how much you keep. Plenty of people with high incomes stay broke because they spend everything they make. And many people with modest incomes quietly become wealthy because they save consistently over time. Housel also points out that saving isn't just about having money for emergencies or retirement. It's about options. Savings give you freedom to leave a bad job. Savings give you flexibility when life throws curveballs. Savings give you time. Time to wait for the right opportunities instead of grabbing the first thing that comes along. Money saved is time and freedom stored for the future. And here's something powerful. You don't need a specific reason to save. You don't have to know exactly what you'll spend it on. Life is unpredictable, and savings protect you from whatever surprises come your way. Housel also emphasizes that building wealth has little to do with income and a lot to do with savings rate. If you earn $50,000 and save 20%, you might be in a better financial position than someone earning $200,000 and spending every dollar. Why? Because wealth is measured by what you keep, not by what you spend, or even what you earn. Another key point. Saving isn't just a financial skill, it's a psychological one. You have to resist lifestyle inflation, comparison, and the urge to show off. That's why saving requires humility and long-term thinking as much as it requires financial knowledge. To sum it up, saving money buys freedom, options, and peace of mind. It's not about depriving yourself, it's about building a future where you control your time, decisions, and opportunities. Chapter 11. Reasonable greater than rationale. In this chapter, Morgan Housel makes a powerful point. When it comes to money, you don't have to be perfectly rational. You just need to be reasonable. Here's why this matters. Many financial experts talk about the mathematically optimal decision. What would make the most sense if people acted like robots with no emotions? But the truth is, we're not robots. We're humans. We have families, dreams, fears, and personal goals that influence our choices. So, while the most rational financial decision might be to invest every spare dollar for maximum return, the reasonable decision might be to pay off your mortgage early for peace of mind. It might not make perfect sense on paper, but it might help you sleep better at night. Housel gives this example. Rational says, don't keep cash sitting in a savings account. Invest it for higher returns. Reasonable says, keep some cash because it makes you feel secure when the market crashes. Both approaches are valid, but the second one fits real human emotions better. Here's the key insight. The best financial plan is the one you can stick with for decades. If a plan is so strict or complicated that it makes you stressed or tempted to quit, it doesn't matter how smart it looks on paper. You won't follow it long enough to see the benefits. So, focus on long-term consistency, not perfection. If your plan allows you to sleep well, stay calm in market downturns, and keep saving year after year, it's a good plan, even if it's not the perfect one. To sum it up, money decisions don't have to be hyper-rational. They just have to be reasonable enough that you can stick with them for the long haul. Chapter 12. Surprise. In this chapter, Morgan Housel reminds us of a powerful truth. The biggest financial events in history, and in our personal lives, often come as complete surprises. Think about it. Nobody predicted the 2008 financial crisis at the exact moment it happened. Very few saw the COVID-19 pandemic coming and how it would change the economy overnight. And on a personal level, you can't predict job losses, medical emergencies, or unexpected opportunities that can transform your financial life. Here's the key point Housel makes. The most important events that shape our financial future are often outliers, rare, unpredictable moments that completely change the game. A sudden recession, a stock market crash, a new technology that creates millionaires overnight. a life-changing job offer or business idea. The problem is, we tend to base our plans only on what's happened in the past, what seems normal. But the future is rarely normal. It's full of surprises. So, what's the lesson here? You need to build your financial life with room for error. Have savings for the unexpected. Don't take on more risk than you can handle. Avoid overconfidence, because the future will surprise you, sometimes in good ways, sometimes in bad. Housel also explains that while we can't predict surprises, we can prepare for them. That means diversify your investments so one bad event doesn't wipe you out. Keep cash reserves for emergencies. Stay humble, because the world changes faster than we expect. To sum it up, financial success isn't about predicting the future. It's about being ready when the unexpected happens. Chapter 13. Room for Error. This chapter builds directly on the last one. Morgan Housel explains that having a margin of safety, room for error, is one of the most important principles in personal finance. Here's why. Life is uncertain. The future is unpredictable. Things almost never go exactly as planned. And when things go wrong, whether it's a job loss, a health crisis, or a market crash, having a financial cushion can mean the difference between staying afloat and sinking. Housel compares this to engineering. Bridges, for example, are built to hold far more weight than they're expected to carry. Why? Because engineers know surprises happen. The extra capacity, the margin of safety, prevents disaster. The same principle applies to money. If you budget or invest assuming everything will go perfectly, you're setting yourself up for trouble. That's why Housel says, plan on your investments earning less than the historical average. Expect expenses to be higher than you think. Assume you'll face at least one major financial setback in life. If you're wrong and things go better than expected, great, you win. But if you're right and challenges come, you'll be ready. Another key point, room for error reduces stress. When you have savings in the bank, low debt, and realistic expectations, you can handle surprises calmly instead of panicking. That emotional stability keeps you from making bad decisions under pressure. Housel emphasizes that people often fail financially not because of bad investments, but because they took on too much risk, borrowed too much money, or lived with no margin for error. One setback, and they're wiped out. To sum it up, a margin of safety isn't about being pessimistic. It's about being realistic. It's your insurance against life's surprises, and it gives you the confidence to stay in the game long enough for wealth to grow. Chapter 14. You'll change. In this chapter, Morgan Housel reminds us of a powerful truth about life and money. You won't be the same person in the future that you are today. Here's what he means. Most people make big financial decisions, like buying a house, choosing a career, or setting retirement goals, based on what they want right now. But what we often forget is that our priorities, values, and goals change over time. The things that feel so important today might not matter as much 10 or 20 years from now. Housel explains this using a concept called the end of history illusion. Psychologists have found that people can look back and see how much they've changed in the last 10 years, but they believe they won't change much in the next 10 years. The truth? We will change, probably as much as we did before. That means some financial decisions you make today might not fit the person you become later. Here's an example. At 25, you might want to take big investment risks because you're chasing growth. At 40, you might value stability and security more than chasing maximum returns. At 60, you might care less about wealth and more about freedom and time with family. Your financial plan has to be flexible enough to adapt as you change. Another key point, people often regret locking themselves into rigid financial decisions because they assumed their future self would want the same things. But life brings new experiences, responsibilities, and perspectives. What feels right today might feel limiting tomorrow. That's why Husserl suggests, avoid extreme financial commitments if you can. Build flexibility into your plan. Leave room for your goals and values to evolve. To sum it up, your financial plan should adapt as you grow and change. The person you'll be in 20 years might have very different priorities than the person you are today, and that's okay. Chapter 15. Nothing's Free. In this chapter, Morgan Housel reveals a fundamental truth about money and investing. Everything has a price, even if you can't see it. Here's what he means. When you invest in the stock market, there's no upfront cost like when you buy a car or a house. But there is a price. It just comes in a different form. The price is the volatility, the ups and downs of the market. The price is the uncertainty, not knowing what will happen tomorrow. The price is the patience, waiting years or even decades to see big results. Housel calls this the emotional cost of investing. Many people want the high returns of the stock market, but they don't want the emotional roller coaster that comes with it. They panic when prices fall, sell at the worst times, or avoid investing altogether because the price feels too high. But here's the key lesson. If you want the rewards, you have to pay the price. Long-term investing requires enduring short-term pain. There's no such thing as high returns with zero risk, zero patience, and zero emotional discomfort. Housel compares this to going to Disneyland. The long lines and high ticket prices aren't flaws. They're part of the experience. If you want the rides, you pay the price. Similarly, market volatility and uncertainty aren't flaws in investing. They are the price of admission for long-term growth. The smartest investors understand this. They don't panic during market crashes because they know downturns are the price they pay for long-term wealth. To sum it up, in money and life, nothing's truly free. Every reward comes with a cost, and the key to success is being willing to pay that cost without losing your long-term perspective. That's just a taste of the psychology of money. For the full audiobook breakdown and more life-changing books, head over to my YouTube channel, The Lit Breakdown. Don't forget to follow for more.